The physical cue I gave myself was no gaps. I didn't care if it was Kidder. I didn't care if it was you, if it was someone that passed me. I wanted to try to commit to every single gap. Even if I would start fading, I would still try to keep that gap the same or make a move around it. And I went backwards. That's cool. I broke physically, but I never broke mentally, which is where I was in Spokane. Spokane, I had my brain off. I was perfect. Everything was great for 2K. And then my race build up, all the months leading up, I told myself, okay, at 2K, you're going to switch on, you're going to turn that brain on, you're going to go, you're going to let the world kind of see how well you've been working. And for the first 2K, it was picture perfect. I felt brilliant. I looked brilliant. I was sitting right where I wanted to off Jake. And then at 2K, I let my mind turn on. But what happened with that is I let everything turn on. I lost the entire focus of the race. I could hear the crowd. I could hear Josh. I could hear my mom. I heard my high school coach. I looked at the clock. I looked at the feet, like everything, every stimulus that I didn't need, all of a sudden just engulfed me. And I shattered in a moment where I literally, all I needed to do was run as fast as I was running. But instead, I just slipped my mind out of it. I faded back. And I missed every single opportunity that I was aiming for. And I banked a lot on making USA indoors. I banked a lot on making the world team. And the darkest point of my career was the night of that 3K, because I sat there so emotionally distraught of like, what the hell just happened? I've had the best training. I've been the most consistent. And so coming off of that, like it was not a defeating moment for me in that 3K. What it felt more like heartbreak. Like I felt as though I betrayed myself. I felt as though I let myself down because I didn't care to prove to anyone but myself that like everything that I'm doing is right. And in that moment, I made it very, very wrong. And my heart like really, really hurt. Like it just pained me. And so when I was at Boston, like I said it to you a little bit, Josh, like my head was in Boston. My heart was in the USA's because I put a lot of emotional effort into that. And on the flip side now, when I think about what's going to prepare me for USA outdoors, because I can't think about worlds, because as it is right now, I won't make that team where I'm currently at physically, mentally. I need to run faster. But what I will say now is if there's someone in the men's 1500 that can run 332 to 333 on the day in June to make that world team, they're going to make that world team if they run 332, 333. Josh, I hate to say it, but every statement that you've made about American milers is very, very true. In that, first, the American record is not slower than the British record, but the commitment that it takes to be a global medalist and a global contender, you have to be able to commit to that pace and compete at a high level and then run faster. And everyone at the USA circuit is just barely getting the world standard at 334. Cole Hawker is the only guy that has ran, and obviously Cooper, but Cole specifically, that has ran at that high caliber level consistently. Everyone else has done it once. Everyone else has done it maybe twice. So when you look at where I want to be for outdoors, not making USAs, recalibrating, running in Boston, seeing what I could do with just a little bit more experience, fitness. I mean, it's June or it's February, and I PR in the mile, I fade, but there's so much light there where I'm like, yeah, like we can do a little bit more damage here. I'm not a 355 miler. I think that's what frustrates me, right? Not a 355 miler. I get that. Why? I'm racing that way. That's cool. My fastest quarter from October to now has been 56.8. So it's like, we haven't even touched on where I want to be as a miler, and that's okay with me. So when we're talking about these really big moments that, and I'm going to speak to the people listening, like if you have these big moments that you're aiming for and you fall short of those, let that suck for a little bit, but don't let that eat you away, because there's going to be another opportunity that presents itself that you can totally recalibrate and kind of re-energize yourself to propel yourself even further than you were going to do and be in that exact moment that you thought was everything. And like I said, put a lot of effort into it. Like Olivia doesn't listen to this podcast, but I booked an entire vacation after the World Indoor Championships, banking that I would make that team because I wanted to be able to celebrate that with her. But we'll figure that out when we get there. But what I want to say is I now am firmly grounded enough to say I'm happier that I was in Boston than I was at USA Indoors, because I got to experience a little bit more world-class I gained more from Boston than I would have gained from USA's. Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you to that, Josh. That was a very, very big indoor segment. But I want to now kind of transition us out into our next little segment, because Josh, you have put your name and face on Brooks. Brooks knows you. Everyone knows, if people think of Brooks running, they're going to now think of Josh Kerr. You're the Des Linden of track and field for the brand. Absolutely. You pick up a spike like this and you go, oh, look at this, right? And now you're the face. So let's talk about these spikes. We're not going to get into great detail. We're not going to go haywire on the tech specs. We work really, really closely with the engineering team and with our sports marketing department to make these the best spikes that they can possibly be. But Josh, go ahead and give a rundown on how these feel, how they ride, what you're kind of looking forward to in the advancement of Brooks and our involvement. I talked a lot just now, so I want to listen.
I know you didn't even let me reply to you, dude.
I was on a roll. If you'd like to reply, you can have a minute rebuttal, but let's keep this thing rolling.
Okay, well, a minute rebuttal. I think, it's difficult. There's this sport is constant, and all it is headlines and we see all the great things that go on, but no one's really posting all that much about, this is what went wrong and this is why I did something bad, and we're only seeing X person, or Ingebrigtsen runs the world record, and then you've got I run the third best mile in history, and then you've got Cole Hawker is running, it gets both USA titles, and it's just it's constant good news. But the thing is, that's just not the reality of the sport. And yeah, I think, and like I said to you, you are perceived as an athlete in the way that you frame yourself, and I genuinely believe that you're a much better miler than a 355 guy, but you think too much, and you try and rationalize. But to be honest, mate, there's no rhyme or reason that I was able to run the splits I ran. There was, if I sat and thought about, I'm gonna go and run a 55 now, and I looked at the times and I looked at the splits, thinking in a race slows you down. This is me talking to everyone now. If you're making a decision in a race and it's not your just instinct, you're just taking time off the end goal, and you'd run slower that way, because thinking slows every single thing down. The thing you should be working on in practice is being able to make those decisions as an instinct. Like watching Henry's race at USA's, he ran phenomenal. He ran really well. He made maybe one mistake on the last lap where he kind of half went and half didn't, but he's got so much better at that because he's been learning and he's been watching races, he's been asking questions. And so when you're talking about, you made a little move and then you kind of had that hesitation has lost you that whole race, in my opinion, because you made a decision. Like the easy part from my point of view is I had no one in front of me, and I had no one, I didn't have to make any race decisions. It was just foot on the gas and see what you've got, big man. But it was just everything was just this is exactly what I need to do. I need to put my foot down and I'm gone. That's all I was thinking about all week, is foot on the gas and just go. And that's why I was able to squeeze out as fast as I could. But when it comes to rationalizing these paces we run, Dave, it doesn't make sense. There's no rhyme or reason for it. If you sit and look at splits before a race and okay, I need to run this, I need to run that. If we run this, then but as long as you have an answer in your head for every scenario that comes your way, you're never going to run that bad. So I run through every single scenario that would ever happen in a race, and I have an answer for myself already written out, already typed out, where it's a robot model where it's this happens, this is a solution, and there's no other decisions to be made. There's never a decision. It's this equals this, that's it. And so when you get to that point where everything is so fluid and you don't have to think, you're going to run your fastest times. And if you're trying to rationalize in a race, you're just going to have perspective, and perspective trying to run low 350s is so difficult because it's just impossible. I think you can run 350 for the mile. I really do think that. And I think a lot of US milers can, but not everyone's doing it, and they don't have to. You don't have to run 350 in the mile to make a team. You just don't. And Cole obviously runs a really good race at USA's, and Josh Thompson runs a good race, but they ran 339. They're not running 330, so you don't have to. And so yeah, that's all I'll say is you've got to have an element of just being just dumb, stupid, confident, where you're just not oh, I'm going to run this because this training's gone well and this specific session is it's heart and mind, man. That's all it is. And to anyone, as long as you have a clear and confident mind I genuinely believe that you'll be good. That's why the cockiest and the dickiest runners seem to end up being quite good, versus, some of the nicest people in track, because they just think too much and they're too smart for their own good.
You're too
But
dumb for
Dave,
your
I
own,
believe in you. I think we've got big goals coming outdoors, and that's the big idea. Like if you make your first world team and it's world outdoors in Eugene, Oregon, I think that's a fairy tale ending to this year. So yeah, we've still got big things to happen, and February can never define a year, and that's what we'll stick with.
I like that. And I want to add one bit as kind of like just a ribbon on that whole presentation of what we just said, is our podcast and like the things that we envision, what we want to do. Like Josh and I are very structured in what we do. We're very strategic. We know what we're doing in terms of wanting to give you guys the best content that we could possibly give you. So if there's like a week where we don't give you something, there's a reason for that. We rationalize all those things. But what I'll say is our number one motto quote was do track differently. It always is going to be, but we're going to also add a little asterisk there of transparency. You're hearing the most transparent thoughts, like Josh saying that to me, but you're also getting to hear that. And I don't necessarily like the position of being, my transparency in the sport and on our podcast right now has always been a little bit more on the defeat side of things. But the cool thing about this podcast is you're going to get the transparency of defeat and you're going to get the transparency of victory. And we're never going to try to sugarcoat things, because everyone can get better in this sport. And we hope that we can help do that. And that's our number one objective, is like this podcast is more than just a brand. It's more than just something you listen to. It's something that you get to experience and also utilize in your own experience. And so with that, Josh, let's go into that spike chat. Let's kind of bring it back around to Brooks. We each have it. We're going to be very careful on what we say, because we don't want to give too many big secrets away of the company that pays the big bills for us. But let's go ahead and talk about that field, Josh. You're wearing that spike. You're holding it up. You wrote British record like an absolute psychopath, and you did it. So let's talk about that field.
Yeah, I got in trouble for that from the fan, but because I showed them beforehand, and they were like, "You're really putting too much pressure on yourself." But the reason I did that, I'll give a little bit of a preface, is I got told that it's championship season. We're a team that steps up for major championships. And I didn't feel a lot of pressure on myself, because Danny told me to stop talking about these things, and so I was like, you know what, like I like to be that situation where it's like all or nothing on the day. Because it really makes you the best racer when it comes to big moments. So I was like, I could really embarrass myself here by doing this. And I genuinely saw no other outcome other than, especially going under that 352. I didn't quite have the balls to add that times 2 at the end the night before, but that came afterwards. But yeah, to be honest, like the biggest thing that I like about the new era of spikes is that it doesn't feel like you're wearing a spike. It's not like, I feel like your foot and the spike are like one now, dude.
Yeah.
Like that's what I really like about these. And the responsiveness is the biggest thing. That's everyone works on now, is like weight versus responsiveness. And these wires, man, like they're just built different. You know what I mean? Like I really like just the detail that goes in. The laces are super tight, like, and so your foot's not moving around. That was a big thing for me. The upper's thick enough where my foot's not going to be, moving onto the track, because my foot sometimes comes out this way. Yeah. So the upper's like thick enough where my foot's not moving, but it's not too thick where it's a super heavy spike. And it looks fire, dude. I'm not gonna lie. And
the colorway's great.
Me for wearing socks with them.
But I wore socks in these. I don't usually wear socks, but I wore socks in these as well. And I've raced without socks in these. And the cool thing about these is they're so breathable, and they have the ability to wear whatever you prefer, sock or no sock, you're going to be able to work with. And I actually kind of liked the sock fit, because it felt really snug. It felt really comfortable in that, like, my shoe and my foot were just kind of one piece. Something that I really like about this too is this collapsible heel in the back, because what this gives is it gives you that full range of motion. You're not like pinching on the calcaneus or the Achilles. You're letting that whole heel ride through the entire foot. And the specs, the science behind the shoe, we work with a brilliant team. And what's really great about this is, like, they schedule chats with us. Like, I'm going to the Brooks headquarters on March 2nd, which is tomorrow, to go in and just kind of give a 90-minute chat about this spike, the spike coming out, kind of what I like, what I don't like. I mean, they take every single bit of feedback, positive or negative.
Yeah. And I'm the worst, because they asked me lots of questions, and I really liked the spike when, like, the first round of it. And I just said I really liked it and I didn't want them to change it. And so they were like, you're being useless. And so like it's just a feel thing for me. Like I genuinely feel like these are the best spikes that they could have come out with this year. I have no problems with them.
Are they the best spike that you've ever had?
Yes. Oh yeah.
100%.
100%.
What would you have ran the collegiate record in if you had this spike your senior year or junior year of college?
I should have ran it in like 33 point, but at least 328, mate. Perfect. No, I don't know. Like it's difficult because I haven't ever actually, I went back to the wires I wore in 2019 before all these before Brooks came out with super spikes. And yeah, not great in comparison.
I think what's funny too is when you look at the competitor products and then the things that they utilize in their shoes, I think the best part about Brooks is their innovation and their ability to see what they're doing, but then do it a little bit better. And I think that's finally what we got to with this spike. And I think this is exactly where we're going to be for 2024 as well. I think for the first time in Brooks running, it's becoming a competitive elite brand. And you should be able to see athletes of all levels wearing elite spikes like the wires or the eliminates, just things that are on their feet that's from our brand.
Yeah. And I think it's a good time to start branching out. Like obviously we're running, I mean, these are going to be one of the fastest miler spikes in the world, like hands down. And just people getting in the spikes, like as soon as you get in these spikes, you're going to be like, wow, these are mega, these are proper big boy stuff. And so just trying spikes out. So when you go to, your local running store and you're trying spikes, just put them on, put different brands on, put, 5 or 6 different brands on, make your comparison because every spike's different. Every spike will, maybe you're looking for a bit more firmness. Maybe you're looking for it to be a bit lighter, a bit more responsive. Like find the spike for you. Don't just go for, the generic brands that you think are going to do well, because every single brand that has a pro running team right now are putting millions and millions of dollars into creating some of the best spikes for the athletes that are coming up in high school, that are coming through college, that are being professionals, or even someone who just wants to go out and try and run their fastest mile or their fastest 5K or whatever. Like just try different brands on. Like that's the big thing, is brands are working so hard in making the best product, and everyone has their own way of doing it. And that's what's really fun from our point of view, is that we get this spike team pretty much saying, we're trying to create the best spike for you guys, and let us know how you do it. So, there's some Josh personality in here. There's some Dave personality in here. There's some Nia personality, Marta. There's every beast has had a hand in these spikes, and it's really cool. Or foot. And it's really cool if you guys can support us that way as well. Just being like, I'm going to try these spikes because, Dave was the one that, has convinced me, that kind of stuff is really fun for us to hear as well. So yeah, I would say get in them, try them. If you don't like them, I'll send you the fucking money back. All right, fine. But I don't know how much they're going to be, but
they're gonna be a nice price, but I mean, they're free for them if they don't like them. So that's gonna really wrap up what we're doing here, guys. We had a fan submitted questions, but we actually looped those in and just kind of naturally let those kind of filter through our natural conversation. So there's nothing that we really need to cover at this point. But like I said, the structure of this is going to be a little bit different. It turned into a little bit more podcasty than I'm probably sure Josh and I thought. But that's the beauty of what we do, is we sometimes get on a roll and we don't want to stop because we've got a mission here.
We're addicts.
We're addicts. We're addicts behind the mic, boys and girls.
I want to finish it there.
I'm sweating. Yeah. So Josh, go ahead. It's been a rough day for me, man.